All right, so this presentation is called a new ontology of time, or an integral ontology of time, but it's actually based on one of my PhD papers that's recently been published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Conscious Evolution. And that paper is entitled Remembering the Future, Wild Time and the Cosmic Imagination. So a little video for you here for a moment.
For most of us, there is only the unattended moment, the moment in and out of time, distraction fit, lost in a shaft of sunlight, the wild time unseen, or the winter lightning, or the waterfall, or the music heard so deeply it is not heard at all. But you are the music while the music lasts.
Okay, so that poetic excerpt is from T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets, which is a meditation on time, and is the very core focus of my PhD, which I won't be able to fully explicate here. Just as an aside, all the information I'm disseminating here today was invoked by reading that poem for the first time. It initiated a spiritual awakening of gargantuan proportions, and all the information I have has been received through mystical aesthetic transmissions. And then I use mathematics, science, and other modes of epistemology to verify or explore verification of what I'm saying. So I'm seeking to present a unified ontology of time, one which merges aesthetics, metaphysics, poetry, mathematics, and cosmology. This amounts to my entire PhD thesis, so it's certainly not within the scope of this presentation to delineate my full theory. However, I'll communicate to you some of the key ideas, one of which is my proposal for a new academic discipline, which I call depth cosmology. So the term depth cosmology is inspired by depth psychology, the psychoanalytic model most famously developed by Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. Just as depth psychology sought to excavate the deepest caverns of the human psyche, its intrinsic nature and expression, its dreams and desires, its processes and its meaning, so depth cosmology does for the cosmic psyche. Indeed, it understands that consciousness and cosmology are inextricable. On the contrary to the physically oriented approach of materialist science, depth cosmology demands the emancipation of our imagination from that which is immediately perceptible. It asks us to swing the doors of perception wide open and elasticate our minds. Depth cosmology is more than a scientific approach. It is a pathway, a style of being in the world. It is also a hermeneutic, as in, it echoes the methodology of literary critique. It speaks to the process of textual analysis and the felt experience of poetic wonder, because the art of literary criticism involves detecting patterns and interpreting the meaning therein, and becoming intimate with the cosmos, I argue, requires a similar approach. Okay, so critiquing literature, like decoding the cosmos, is the process of deciphering. It also reaches towards the whole work of art, the aesthetic gestalt, because I believe this is an intrinsically aesthetic cosmos. So then what we need is a new kind of cosmologist, one whose thinking is grounded in coherent trans-disciplinary praxis, the synthesis of physics, literature, mathematics, mythology, astrology, neuroscience, and psychology. Wild time. So then, wild time, what is that? Well, I argue that time is wild because time is unseen. Time is wild because time eludes us, escapes us, and defies limitation. All you have to do is go on the street and ask someone what time is, and you'll see pretty quickly how hard it is to actually define. In the words of St. Augustine, what is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain to the one that asketh, I know not. One of the fundamental questions I am asking is, if space-time is inseparable, is an inseparable and indissociable fabric, why is it that we can physically return to certain places and spaces, but not to certain times? Well, when you think about it, it's obviously because space relates to the physical world. Space is something that humans can easily demarcate, claim, and control. Time, however, resists such ownership. Time is invisible, it's uncontrollable, and in the words of Geoffrey Chaucer, waits for no man. Although time is obviously interwoven with the physical world, it does confer a deeper relationship with our immaterial consciousness, with the non-physical. My core proposition is that there is a special relationship between time and consciousness. The notion that it is a mutually enhancing relationship, entangled with beauty, truth, and the meaning of our existence. So, why does time exist? Firstly, we need to understand that time, like matter, is an illusion, i.e., not what it seems. Rather, I suggest that time is an intelligently designed, imaginal act of the cosmic mind to allow for its own unfolding. I argue that time exists because time enables the process of self-discovery, and that discovery doesn't happen all at once. Rather, the process of self-discovery happens through a finely wrought interplay of revealing and revelation, of stasis and movement, of courage and fear. It's much like a cosmic video game. Time enables a ludic arena through which the cosmos can participate in its own individuation. Space-time is a matrix, a womb of creation, gestation, and exploration in material form. Time provides the stage for the cosmic mind's self-exploration in the physical dimension. It facilitates the experience of evolution, the process of becoming. Time is what allows being to become. Right, hyperdimensional time. So, what is time? Well, I propose time is hyperdimensional, that far from being linear, time is complex, multidimensional, and flows both ways. While space corresponds to the 3D metric of material reality, time, on the other hand, reaches far beyond it. Just as those who smoke DMT report entry into a grid of reality known as hyperspace, I believe there exists a correspondent hyper-time. The way time interfaces with material reality is akin to a higher dimensional shape intersecting with a lower one. Our conventional experience of time, then, perhaps is but a slice of hyperdimensional geometry. Take, for example, the relationship between 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. Imagine a 2-dimensional plane, piece of paper, for example, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here of the slide. Then imagine a ball. As you can see, I've chosen this nice translucent pink one up here. If you imagine this ball intersecting with the paper, if we sliced it in half and looked at it from this perspective, we would see this right here. Imagine then if we existed on a 2D plane of existence, what the mathematician Edwin Abbott called flatland. You would see a linear 2D slice of the ball. You wouldn't get the entire object. So we've got to take several things into account here, because mainstream science resists the existence of higher dimensioned, blinkered as they are in metaphorical flatland. Number one, I argue that epistemologically, we know that other dimensions exist because they're an essential feature of mathematics. Many equations that would otherwise be unsolvable are actually solvable because of the complex plane. Numbers such as E and I, as in irrational and imaginary numbers. Furthermore, there was a recent study by the Blue Brain Project in Switzerland in 2017, which sought to map out the shape of thoughts using AI and a branch of mathematics known as algebraic topology. What it discovered is really phenomenal. It discovered that thoughts happen in up to 11 mathematical dimensions, and we live in 3, 4 if you include time. Now, when you coalesce these ideas together with the concept of a holographic universe and the holonomic brain theory, as developed by Carl Pribram and David Bohm, who's my homeboy down here, now you can see him, now you can see my slides, I think it becomes very, very reasonable extrapolation to argue that we are beholding but a shadowy slice of higher dimensions, dimensions which arguably are much more real and much more fundamental than our own. I believe that Plato's cave analogy has never seemed more salient. I've included here an image of the hop vibration, which is a 4-dimensional object now rendered visually here in 3 dimensions. Here, of course, is the very, very famous depiction of Plato's cave. Okay, time is not a unit. One of the main issues with materialism is that it atomizes everything, including time. But time is not a unit. It is an event. It is not the ticking of the clock, for this is only a measurement. While modern society has necessitated meting time into discrete units, we must not conflate our quanticizing of temporality with its intrinsic nature. Like an elusive jaguar deep in the jungle, time evinces its existence in the tracks we catch sight of. We see not the creature herself, only the traces she leaves behind. Our experience of regular forward-flowing time is born of the changing landscape and the movements of the moon, through the waves that lap at the shore and the leaves which burn and turn crimson gold before they fall to the ground once more. We see things rise and fall, wax and wane, leave and return, grow and decay, and we think to ourselves, this is time. After all, perhaps though, we know time most intimately through its irrevocability. After all, what is more real than beholding the body's changing flesh? The accumulation of days that etch themselves upon our face before we eventually wither and perish, like every living thing before us. This is what we think time is. Entropy, excuse me. Right, so what this inevitable decay is, actually is entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy is how we tend to relate to time. Entropy states that energy tends to spread out and slow down, tending towards equilibrium and increasing entropy. Entropy is the movement of heat from hot to cold or order to disorder, and it always increases. This is why the second law gives rise to the infamous times arrow, because entropy of an isolated system can increase, but not decrease, and therefore time moves in one direction. Thus, entropy is the only law of physics to be asymmetric in time, while all other laws are time symmetrical. However, although entropy reveals to us something of time, specifically how it interfaces with the physical dimension, contrary to mainstream thinking, it does not mean the trajectory of the entire universe is defined by irreversible time. That is because entropy is based on probabilistic laws and cannot be applied with certitude to everything in existence. Similarly, when we hear the ticking of the clock, we tend to think, okay, yes, that's time, but it's not. It is not time, it is simply the measurement of time. So with this in mind, I propose entropy as merely a lower dimensional slice of hyperdimensional time, that entropy pertains directly to how time's hyperdimensional geometry interfaces with matter in a lower dimension. Time's perceived incontrovertible irreversibility is exactly that, perceived. While I believe this is a necessary part of the cosmic architecture, my argument is that entropy does not provide us with a complete ontology of time. Note how in the video here, the movement from order to disorder in the shuffling of cards demonstrates the increase of complexity. Thus, entropy allows for syntropy, the advancement towards ever more sophisticated systems of organization. Similarly, the unfurling skeins of smoke is technically fluid dynamics, entropy in action. This is also aesthetically beautiful. There is something deeply poetic about the movement of the smoke, is there not? Perhaps the beauty arises because it indicates time's passing and thus our inevitable return to the source, which we might know on an intuitive and subconscious level. Different orders of time. So I do wonder whether there may be exotic vibratory matrices that exist on different orders of time, dimensions of reality much more elastic and delicious than our own. My suspicion is yes. I propose that we are neurons in the neural network of a cosmic brain, that the brain tissue is the substance of the universe, and that this brain belongs to an actual being, a being of an order of a magnitude so great it is beyond what we will ever understand. Furthermore, I suggest this being encompasses a hyperdimensional, cascading hierarchy of other intelligent and individual beings, like a series of Russian dolls which exist on various dimensions, a hyperbolic, hyperdimensional manifold that is completely interconnected and intrinsically personalized. My speculation is that there may be different regions of time in the complex plane, so-called imaginary time. That kind of time is like putty in the palm of the hands of these beings. This speaks to the Wick rotation discovered by the theoretical physicist Wolfgang Pauli, which refers to the interdimensional oscillation of the number I. This, then, is cosmic consciousness iterating itself across all levels, across all orders of reality. I postulate the human journey of individuation as in the journey of self-discovery, transformation, and becoming whole, as simply a lower dimensional reflection of a much greater cosmic process.
Just letting you know there's 5 minutes left.
Yeah, thank you. So time is non-linear. If you look at the science, it's abundantly clear that time is not linear. Firstly, space-time is curved. Secondly, who's to say that the universe is a closed system, i.e. no information going in or out, and that the universe has a boundary, which we can see in this depiction here of standard cosmology. To me, this seems unlikely. After all, the Big Bang occurred in the first place, suggesting something beyond the universe, for it was that which brought it into being. David Bohm's theory of an unfolded implicate order also negates a closed system. Furthermore, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff's theory of consciousness as a non-computational quantum process suggests that our mind is interacting with the implicate order in a recursive feedback loop. Since the implicate order is outside of time and space, essentially so are we. Indeed, there is evidence to suggest that our mind is going into superposition 10 to the 37 times a second. It's caused quantum entanglement, also known as the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, which evinces faster than speed of light information transmission, transcends the laws of physics, and indicates that this universe is not bound by space and time. Finally, the recent discovery of the amplituhedron, which you can see down here rendered in 2D, further nullifies time's linearity. The amplituhedron has simplified the calculations of quantum particle interactions and unifies locality with non-locality. Qualia magazine describes the amplituhedron as a multifaceted jewel in higher dimensionals and challenges the very existence of time and space. Reverse causality, retrocausal time. So reverse causality is often misunderstood because people conflate it with going back in time from the present moment to a previous one and in material form, hence the famous grandfather paradox. However, this could never happen. Firstly, matter cannot travel back in time, the mass is too great. Secondly, reverse causality is such that all outcomes have already been considered. What we perceive as acausality may actually be reverse causality stemming not linearly necessarily, but from another dimension in time. We also have strange attractors, which belong to the mathematical field of dynamical systems and suggest how we may be influenced by future events. An attractor is a set of states towards which a system tends to evolve, and a strange attractor has a fractal system.
2 minutes left.
Thank you. We also have the behavior of antimatter in quantum mechanics, which indicates how reverse causality may work. To quote the philosopher physicist Kerry Welsh, between what we think of as empty space hidden by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, at the smallest scales of time and space, a seething quantum foam of virtual particles continually create and annihilate each other just out of the reach of detection. In this scenario, an antiparticle runs backwards in time to annihilate a particle at a point of inflection. See, I'm just going to rush through this now. I don't even know if I have time to properly give this to you, in fact. So if anyone's interested in destiny determinism, come back to me at another time, but I don't have time to go through this because this is also big, 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 big. Okay, time's beauty. Time's pattern is what generates its beauty. I posit time as an invisible structure, a kind of sacred geometry which speaks the aesthesis of music and Gestalt phenomenology. This is because music, like time and consciousness, is intangible. It is pure form. It is also patterned, the patterned relationship between its constituent parts. I suggest that in the unfolding movement of consciousness and subsequent unfoldment of beauty, the universe becomes increasingly personalized through the integration of actualized individuals. Also consider Pythagoras' idea of a musical cosmos. As he so famously said, there is geometry in the humming of the strings and music in the spacing of the spheres. Right, I'm gonna just rush through this final slide. So I posit space-time fabric as a nucleocomplex manifold of a hyperdimensional cosmic brain, a little like a neurocosmic Calabi-Yau. As we evolve, we gain more surface area of the multidimensional cosmic tissue and thus access to higher consciousness. According to David Bohm, ultimately all moments are really one, therefore now is an eternity. Why this may be true at the most transcendent, timeless level of reality, I also suggest an evolving enfoldment of myriad realities, personalities, and dimensions across scaling iterations of time. I suggest that the cosmic telos sings itself into being from the future across a jewel-like interdimensional fractal topology. I'm going to leave it there. And I'm so sorry that my first few slides didn't play. That has really made me very upset. But I'm open to questions later. And thank you so much for being so patient and understanding the mishap. And I'll leave it there. Thank you. Thank you.